Hey, what's going on? This is Melanie Fiona, and you're checking me out on YouKnowIGotSoul.com. Be sure to check out my brand new album, The MF Life, available in stores March 20th.
Hey, Melanie, how are you?
Hey, what's up? How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for taking the time for the interview. We appreciate it.
Sure.
So, just want to start off talking about your new album coming out next week, The MF Life. Just tell us first off, what is The MF Life?
The MF Life is it's about the ups and downs of life and love. It is a mentality. It is a state of mind. It's to encourage people to acknowledge, own, and find the strength in how we feel and the things that we go through.
Mm-hmm.
And the MF Life, I'm living it every day, and I encourage you to do the same.
Yeah, cool. And, I was at the listening session you had out here in New York last week and heard a lot of different, sounds in there. You mix in some different genres. Just talk about that a little bit.
That's typical Melanie Fiona.
Yeah.
If you listen to the first album, I mixed a lot of genres in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
I never like to be put into a box.
Yeah.
I never like to try to, have people pinpoint what it is exactly that I'm supposed to be doing or what I should be doing, and I just do what feels right.
Mm-hmm.
I just do what feels right. So, that is kind of my genre, just a fusion of different music, and
yeah.
that's kind of like what I specialize in.
Yeah, cool. Your current single, 4 a.m., it's doing really well on Billboard now. You released it last year, and it took a while for it to actually take off. I was just wondering, do you think it took some time for people to catch on? Because, I always loved the song, thought it was a smash from the start. But, it's finally gaining some momentum, so.
Yeah, I definitely think, there's a lot of factors that go into, why people love a record, why, they know about a record, radio,
mm-hmm.
media, everything has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
I think what happened was that the song started to pick up, my album started to get a little bit more, spoken about when it was coming,
mm-hmm.
and I started doing a lot of more press and promo, and I think the more people heard it and they discovered it, it just became this thing that they wanted to keep hearing more and more of, and, radio really got on board with it, as of late, and they really helped to show the support and gave it the support that it needs, and people are loving it and they need to hear it, so,
yeah.
I think, I'm not a sprint runner, so to speak. I'm a marathon runner,
yep.
and I believe in, working, putting in the work if something is worth it. It Kills Me was the same thing. It Kills Me became a #1 record, New Year's Eve of 2009, but released in August.
Mm-hmm.
So this song actually took longer than that, and it's actually not such a bad thing because it's actually it's at its peak right now when my album is about to come
yep.
out. So, everything always works out the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, well, I'm glad it's really doing well. I love that song.
Thank you.
So, following this single, do you have plans to release another single? Have you picked one yet?
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely have some. There's a couple different options. Chase the Record is going to be a single overseas,
okay.
Internationally. Here, there's a couple of things that we've been discussing at some point in the timeline. This time with J. Cole, Wrong Side of a Love Song.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of people are actually coming and bringing up the feature with Nas, and they're really, really loving it. I think the cool thing is that since the album is coming out on Tuesday and we're not quite moving on to the next single just yet, it's really going to give us a chance to, listen to the people and let them choose the single, and then we can give them what they want.
Yeah, great point. Okay. And during the listening session, you mentioned you had a song on there written by Drake, and I know you guys came out of Canada together, so was that kind of like a natural collaboration for you to do?
Yeah, it's interesting because what most people would have expected naturally is him to jump on my record and rap,
mm-hmm.
and Drake and I have known each other for years as artists,
yep.
so I've known him as a writer and as a rapper, and him know me as a writer and a singer, and I'm glad that we collaborated in the non-typical expected format, just because he is a dope songwriter, and I think he wrote a hell of a song after, we discussed what kind of content I wanted to discuss about and touch upon, and he's written for Alicia Keys, Mary J. Blige, he's written for everybody, so, he's a friend of mine. I'm glad we could collaborate on this album in this effort together in this way. I think it's really unique, and I think the song is dope. Yeah.
All right. Cool. You also got a collaboration with John Legend on L.O.V.E. Just touch on that song a little bit.
It is John Legend and myself. We did this record coming off of his song that he asked me to be a part of, Wake Up, for the album he did with the Roots, and I love this record. This record is the album touches upon a lot of different, stages and levels and colors of love, and this one in particular is very important because it's not the most important. It's the love for each other as people. Love for your brother, love for your sister, love for your neighbor, and that can make a difference in the world and change the world and save the world. And I love this song because it's just such a positive message, and I always need to have a record like that. On my first album, it was Ayo, and on this album, I feel like L.O.V.E is that record. And of course, I got to collaborate with John Legend, and he is, he's one of the best out there, and he's such a dope songwriter. So to say that I was able to write a song with John Legend is really great.
Cool. One thing that's always stood out to me about your music is the feeling and the emotion you put into it, and I can feel when listening to it. Can you touch on that? The emotion you put into your music when creating it.
It's just honest. It's just honest. I put myself into a place of what it is I'm trying to express, and I live it when I record, and that's the best way for me to do it. And I envision how I want to perform this song on stage, and I envision where I want it to fall in my shows, and I envision what I want people to take from it. And I take all of those things into account when I sing. And, I think that's just the type of singer I am. I am an emotional singer.
Yeah.
And, that's just what comes naturally. It's not forced.
Yeah, cool. Question from one of your fans. They want to know if you ever have any hopes or desires to collaborate with fellow R&B singers out of Canada, like Tamia or Deborah Cox, for example.
That would be cool. That would be cool. I actually know both ladies, and they're very, very sweet and very super talented. I'm down to collaborating with anyone who wants to collaborate, as long as it makes sense. I have no discrimination against collaboration. I think that would be really powerful for the female voices of Canada, which sometimes too often and sadly go overlooked.
Yeah.
So, they're great.
Yeah, cool. And, just speaking of Canada, my partner who I run this site with, he's from Vancouver, lives out there, and he was mentioning to me he doesn't feel like they play your music out there as much as they could, or maybe support as much as they could. So, do you always feel like you get the support you deserve from Canada? Talk about that if you could.
Yeah, that's the truth. I don't. I don't. And I just did a bunch of press with Canadian press, and they're all like, it's kind of crazy that you have so much, success internationally, but, you haven't really made it here. And I'm like, and they ask me what it is, and it's the industry. It has nothing else to do with the industry. The industry can decide if they want to support, and I've always repped Canada, and I've always been proud to be Canadian, and I've always done this to shine a light back onto Canada. And so, they are a little bit late to the party. They really are, and it's a bit hurtful, when that's such a focus of what you're doing. But it is what it is. It's just different territories take different times, and they're not as developed. I'll be the first to tell you, especially for urban music, they are not developed to support it at all. They don't have urban stations. It's just one format most of the time across the country, and you would think that they would just say, "Oh, she's Canadian, we have to play her," but I guess that's just not all that goes into that.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Okay, well, hopefully that'll change soon.
Yeah, I'm hoping so too.
And just finally, another fan question: do you see yourself getting into any ventures outside of music someday? Have any desires to do anything like that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I love fashion. I love being a woman. I love incorporating functionality for fashion in women, and making things that are for real women in real life. And I definitely want to expand and do some cool merchandise things and fashion lines, and also maybe even a little bit of television. I just feel like wherever I feel comfortable expressing my art, I'm into it.
Yeah. All right, sounds good. So anything you'd like to add?
Just that I am so excited about this album, and I appreciate the support so much, because the energy that I feel when I feel this as Tuesday approaches, from my fans online, from my label, from my team, from people that I meet on the street, it's just so positive. So, I just want to say thank you. And I hope that, you love this album when you hear it, and you celebrate it for a long time, and it inspires you to live your MS life.